The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we're going to review Austin's tough 5-1 loss in Vancouver. We'll preview the upcoming LA Galaxy match and cover some other Austin FC news. My name's Landon Cottom, and I'm joined once again by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley. Good to have you back, bud.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley. I'm happy to be back. I think I told you last week I was at a conference in Baltimore. I was actually at a conference in National Harbor, Maryland, which is way closer to DC because I didn't buy a map. I also bought a plane ticket into Baltimore and had to spend like an extra 45 minutes driving through Washington, D.C. on the way where the conference was. So it's all fine. But
I hear that's a real easy city to get through, though.
Yeah, yeah, that's 60 miles. It took an hour and 40 minutes. That was amazing for sure. But so I'm happy to be back here for many reasons with you on Monday night and not in National Harbor. Actually, at the same hotel where there was a big defense contractor conference, and there is a company there that built a Gerald Ford nuclear aircraft carrier that cost $14 billion. Those guys, they were having steak dinners. They were doing okay.
God bless America.
Yeah. And you said you had a rough Saturday overall, right? Other than the game of the evening, which we're going to spend a lot of time talking about then, but also was it early afternoon, late morning? Did you have a rough one also?
I did. I played with my rec league team Saturday morning. I think we lost that game 5-2. And so if we're including the proverbial we, whenever we're talking about supporting a professional sports team, I lost a combined 10-3 on Saturday. Although I did sub a half after that drubbing in the morning. I played a half with a Division II team, and I'm pretty proud. I held my own in a D2 team, and whenever I left, I think we were winning that game 1-0. And so I'm gonna include that one and say that the loss was 10-4 overall.
I like that. And I think that one of the themes that we're going to have from that story and from this week is that we are again going to find the joy in little bits whenever we can amidst all the depression. So
one of the skill sets we've learned over the last few years.
Yeah. And so one of my bits of joy was seeing the hot sauce and the bandana design from the Patreon on Instagram today, and then also having seen it before in images. So let's talk about Patreon.
Yeah, I felt bad kind of doing the big reveal on a week that you weren't there, but also we've made people wait long enough. And so I decided just to go for it. But yeah, super, super happy with how the designs turned out. Becca Messenger did the design of the bandana. She also did the label for the hot sauce that St. Blaine's made for us. So big thanks to those folks there. You can go to our Instagram page now, and there's some good photos of the things there. The Patreon stuff is a little bit strange, and they don't let you add zoom-inable photos of the things. So I added links to the to the Instagram post where you can see good photos of that stuff. Talking about the Patreon idea in general, you can look at joining our Patreon as a gesture of gratitude, almost like a tip. So when you tip at a bar or restaurant, you're paying more than you have to because you appreciate the service that you were provided. But since our show is free and we plan to always make the main content of our show free, you can think about it in a more transactional way and just say you're paying for a service that we are providing. So if you think of things that you pay for regularly, Netflix subscription, beers at the stadium, which are, I don't know, Netflix is $20 a month. Beers at the stadium are usually well over $10 a piece. I could go on with things that you probably don't think too much about spending money on. Even if you join at our highest level, you're paying about $1 per hour of content published in our feed. And so we always want to keep our main content free. And so if you're not in the situation to join and pay for it right now, we totally get it. But if you do have a few extra bucks to spend and you value what we do in the entertainment or content that we bring for you, we would greatly appreciate you going to patreon.com/moontowersoccer and joining there. And then, as a piece of gratitude, we'll send you one of those gifts that look really great. And we're really proud and can't wait to get them out in your hands.
I think I've talked about the different things that have been really cool about this journey. And I feel like having our own hot sauce has got to be, I don't know if it's better than meeting the Queen of the Netherlands. It's right up there. It's really close. One is always Adrian Healy being a friend of ours and answering our phone calls and texts. I feel like it's always absolutely the coolest thing about this journey. But yeah, hot sauce is pretty tied up there too.
Yeah, I think those two things, and then just like seeing some of our stuff out in the wild, like the socks or a shirt or a scarf or something, that's always pretty great too. But yeah, custom limited edition hot sauce is not one I had on the bingo card. So thanks to St. Blaine's for making that one happen.
All right, Landon, you know what we got to do now? Got to talk about this game on Saturday.
All right, yeah. So Austin went to Vancouver. Mathematically possible to become supporter shield leaders after the weekend, but not what ended up happening. Lost 5-1. Just an overall really terrible night.
I think that's the perfect description of what happened, and we'll get into sort of our emotions throughout the night when we get through the whole story. But I mean, I guess to start with, both of our central defenders looked pretty bad on the night. Julio seemed to have lost. You've talked about this, losing the object permanence, and it seemed like on a couple of those goals, he did that too. Like, that's not super harsh, right? The fact that was maybe the worst performance by two center backs that Austin has maybe ever had, or I don't know, it was bad.
I don't know. I'll push back against that because one of the things we've talked about a few times over the year is that part of why the defense has been so good is because those center backs have not been asked to be heroes. They've been asked to be center backs, and the team in front of them did not put them in situations to have to be heroes. On a night like tonight, nobody was really covering for anybody. And so when you ask Julio Cascante to be a hero defensively, we've seen that in a lot of situations, he's not really capable of doing that outside of a handful of situations. So I think the Crignolas watched the game at our house, and Steph was saying like she can't wait to see people online blame Julio for this loss. And at the time I was like, yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I think probably people unfairly blame him. But as we get into some specific moments in the game, sorry, Steph, but it's me. I'm people online, and I'm going to say some bad things about Julio Cascante.
And it's fair. So I think I'll just start with the biggest question. I'm going to trust that you'll remember to put a bleep in here. What the happened on Saturday?
I think you can chalk it up to a few things. I think one, and Nico Estevez talked about this over and over in the post-game press conference, but we lost the intensity battle. So many moments in any soccer game are won or lost on the margins of speed, effort, intensity, whatever combination of those things that go into specific moments. Austin lost every one of those moments in this game. And so another thing Estevez said was, he said something like, everything is going their way. They're in a moment where everything is going their way. Austin was unlucky in certain moments during this game. That's just soccer. Like, that's not sour grapes. It's not me trying to, that's just like, that happens in soccer games. It's a game of chance in certain aspects. And so I'll say that, but it can also say like Vancouver is creating their own luck in a way with their combination of tactics and quality and intensity. So like tactically, just where they have guys in comparison to where Austin is defending, they're creating advantages in that way. And then with their intensity, we'll talk about one of the goals where there's several moments where Austin could have cleared it out, and just Vancouver just had that little bit more speed, that little bit more effort that pushed them into willing a goal into the back of the net. And Austin is just not creating that same luck for themselves. There's always going to be these lucky, unlucky things that you can't really control, but you can put yourself in a situation to benefit from the luck or lack of luck in that moment. And Austin is not doing that, where Vancouver is doing that constantly.
Yeah, and I'm going to use X goals now because it's convenient for my argument. But the XG in this game is 4.76 for Vancouver to 0.88 for Austin. That seems very fair and maybe underscores what Vancouver could have done. But I think what it really illustrates is the number of chances and the number of quality chances they had. Even if you look just beyond the shots, which were also overwhelmingly in favor of Vancouver, created
And
a
a
lot
lot
better
of them
opportunities all the way around.
a lot of them second chances where
Yes.
there was a shot and then another shot. And I think that's telling when that happens multiple times, of that intensity, of that focus, of that sharpness that just wasn't there.
Yeah, and that was something that I think Brendan Hindsight talked about too in that one, is they just kind of got beat on effort and on intensity. And but actually the coach did too. Nico talked about that also. Just that they needed to show up 100% on the night, and they did not.
I think the intensity played a factor in the offense as well. So whenever Pereira or Savovich would receive the ball in the midfield, their central midfielders were putting a lot of pressure on ours. And Andres Cubas is the best on the defensive side of the ball, certainly. I think the best defensive midfielder in the league. I think you could argue like the total package. Maybe there's some other guys in the league, but defensively, he's the guy right now. And so, of course, he's going to be hard to play against. But our midfielders, our entire team, lacked that intention and urgency with the ball. And so struggling to move the ball with authority. But whenever they did break a line or get through and find some space, they were far too passive or far too ready to just play a negative pass and eliminate that advantage. And it feels like reverting to an older version of Austin FC, where this year's team, if nothing else, has been willing to play forward, play aggressively, play quickly. And that did not happen in this game. So many times, Danny Pereira or Savovich would receive it, and you're still asking them to do something special because of how good Vancouver was, but they did not look like they believed they could do something special and never even tried.
Yeah, and I think we teased a little bit, or I did, that maybe the previous match where they didn't look very good. Look, Horseshoe said, is he in a way, although it wasn't. But I think if you look at the passing chart in this match, sort of where the connections points are, where all the passes were, like it's a lot of, there was a lot of aimless possession, but it was all like sort of at the back line too, right? I mean, it was deep. It was deep aimless possession. It wasn't just because Austin is not on the ball a ton, but when they had the ball, they're also not making any progressive passes.
I think spiritually, this is the most Horseshoe of sadness we've seen this year, where there was not an idea of what to do with the ball. I think there was another game, I can't remember which one, where we were struggling to find a way through, but they were trying, and it looked like they had ideas and they weren't quite coming off, and they were working those angles and trying to get there and just couldn't do it. This one, the ideas were not even there, and it didn't look like it was ever going to happen.
So do we think that this is like a blueprint or something that we would see other clubs who have the talent and ability to do this, like replicate this against Austin? Is this a sort of a known deficiency now?
I mean, you've seen this strategy deployed in recent years against teams with Austin's profile, where LAFC or St. Louis that year that they were so good, teams could beat them by just saying, here, have the ball, beat us with this. And a lot of times they weren't able to do it. And that proved to be a good strategy against those kinds of teams. I think Vancouver seemed to be doing that a little bit in this game, especially early on, and Austin failed the test. And so it's concerning, and we can talk about in our LA Galaxy preview what we'd like to see change or what we think could happen going forward. But as of right now, if I were a team playing against Austin, that's what I would do. I would not press them. I would sit back a little bit, let them have the ball, and say, beat us with possession, because we're not going to let you counter on us.
Yeah, man. And I think the reason that this would be extra frustrating now, outside of the possession, is just the fact that you've got three guys up top who have really good pedigrees and like cost a lot of money. And like Austin should be able to beat people now. I guess what's missing now, maybe in big ways, is like the connection point between getting the ball out of the back and getting the ball to those guys. But it's just overall, it becomes even more frustrating because like where the investments have been made. And maybe, hopefully, this is not mistaken. Maybe should save like one DP spot for somebody that could make connecting points. But I think that's the way that like most fans are going to feel about this lack of scoring and lack of threat, is that it seems like misspent resources.
Yeah, and I think you could say those front three guys have been disappointing to various degrees, but what's even more disappointing is the fact that we're not really giving them an opportunity to show what they have, because they're not getting multiple chances in a game. They get one or two, and then that's all they get. So, it's something they're going to have to figure out for sure.
Yeah, let's go to Nico's comment after the game. I thought summarized it up. I'm just going to read it to give Verde All Day credit. I'm going to read it as quoted from Verde All Day, which is probably true, but like they did the effort of transcribing it. So I want to make sure they get credit for that. So he says, "We're ashamed about how we represented our city today, and we'll make sure that these things don't happen. We can lose a game. It's part of the game. We lost against Colorado. We lost against Portland. But we have to lose with our values, with our identity, being ourselves, fighting, leaving everything there. And when we are not playing at 120%, we are an average team, and this is what we showed today." What's your reaction to that comment? Other than yeah, you're right.
I mean, I 100% agree. I think Estevez and Brennan Hines-Ike was the player that they ran out. I think they said all the right things. And like we've talked about this before, sometimes the right thing to say to the media and the right thing to say in the locker room are not the same thing. I think this is a situation where I hope and think that they probably are saying the exact same things in the locker room and to the media. And I think they're the right things to say. What else I would say about that, though, is that it's only worth something if they act upon it. Brennan Hines-Ike said something along the lines of this is a good time of year for this to happen. This is an opportunity. I think he said the opportunity to show who we are as men.
That's right. That is what he said. Yeah.
Who you are as a person, how you respond to a moment like this will show who you are as a person. That is absolutely the right thing to say to your teammates as the captain at the moment. How they respond to it is going to be the main thing, though, because we saw Brad Stuver post an apology on social media, which I appreciate. I know a lot of fans appreciate. But how many times can we see the same apology over the last 2 years before people are like, okay, whatever, I don't care anymore. And this is what this opportunity shows is you can do that once. You can say these things in the press conference once or twice throughout the season. If you say it every week, it stops meaning anything and it stops being worth anything. And so they need to listen to themselves, listen to the coach, listen to Hines-Ike, take that to heart and carry that into this next week and take that opportunity to show the first 7 games is who we were. This one is not. This is not who we are. The first 7 games were real.
And this may be a foolish position as a fan, but I feel like with this coach and this team in this season and just the little bit that we've seen out of them and what we know about them, this is more of a reality. This is more of a potential for a reality than it has been in past seasons, where it's you guys can keep saying this, and we're going to get an open letter to Brad Stuber from the fans, thanking us for loving him, late in the season when all hope is lost. But we need to see the results, but it feels like this is a club that still has the potential in them to show those results, and I don't know that I've really always felt that before. I felt like these comments are lip service before, and I felt like we've gotten some of these comments from other players, some of whom aren't even here, who were the captain of the team maybe a year or two ago, right? Who made this kind of lip service comments about learning and moving on, and they didn't seem to learn, and they didn't seem to move on. So I hope that this is and the LA Galaxy, we'll get in the preview on this, are the perfect team to be able to show that against, but I hope this is a real thing.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, you want to take a quick break and we'll come back and dig into some more of the match events and then also dig into some of the tactical things that we saw that led to some of these events.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
No one is around.
Moontower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment. You can check it out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balances. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Amplify Esperanza branch on game day, go to www.goamplify.com/moontower-soccer. All right, we are back. We're going to dig further into the Vancouver match. Jeremiah, where were we at leading into this game?
Well, this feels very silly now, but I think a lot of the chatter leading into the match was about how many matches Vancouver had to play, and they were going to be on short rest. I think, 2-3 days or something in between their last game and that game. They had some players injured. Like, this is Austin's chance, right? This is Austin's chance to prove itself to be one of the top clubs in the West. That did not work out. Austin's availability report, not awesome. So we got Micah Burton out, which I don't know that matters that much. Dessler continues to be out. And did we get an update on, I guess Dessler's like in training or running on the side or something like that? So
Nico said he's on track from where they initially thought, but that's still putting it at May when he's back to availability. So sometime in May.
So we got him out. We got Diego Rubio out for the second straight match, I think. And then we have, this kind of came up in the midweek press conference because people asked Nico about Ilie Sanchez and why Ilie hadn't played. Ilie said, I think against St. Louis, it was sort of a minute management decision, but then they were also worried about his just physically where he might be. And so he shows up as unavailable with a hamstring injury, which means we have now 3 of 4 on hamstring. So I don't remember if we talked about the groin demon or over-under, but it seems like we have a hamstring demon now among the Austin player base.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there's another word that we could apply to this one, like a hamstrangler.
I like that one. That's good.
Listeners, let us know if you have a better idea, but we're going to go with that for now. Yeah, and I think a game like this where you're talking about like organization, effort, togetherness, Ilie probably would have been a good guy to have around for this one.
Absolutely.
Riley Thomas also, we talked about last week how, okay, he's used up his 4 short-term loan call-ups. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get a first-team contract. That's what we got on Friday, I believe. And so Riley Thomas is now a supplemental roster player for the first team. It's only 1 guaranteed year, is that right?
That's right. Guaranteed through 2025 with options for 2026 and 2027. Also signed a loan agreement to appear with Austin FC 2, so he remains eligible to appear in MLS Next Pro matches. This is really a paperwork move, right? Because Austin has a lot of supplemental spots available. He fits them with them. I mean, they spend a little bit of money, like hard cost money, but no salary cap money, probably to do that with him. But it doesn't really affect Riley Thomas's flexibility, other than now he can play up for the first team if he's needed.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't using those supplemental spots. They may not use those supplemental spots, so it doesn't hurt them at all to do this. He's a guy who seems probably physically capable of playing at the MLS level and has played fullback, has played center back, so he's got some positional flexibility there. I think Riley Thomas is probably one of those guys whose ceiling is on a technical level, but physically he seems like a guy who can hold his own at this level. So yeah, it's just a good backup plan in case everything goes wrong or continues to go even more wrong as far as health goes along the back line. But yeah, I think this is a good call for now. And then once Dessler's back, I imagine he'll probably go back to spending most of his time with the second team.
Yep. And then we also got to fill another spot, Irvin Torres gets another first team, a short-term agreement, sorry. It's a short-term agreement call-up. Let's see, too. Available for selection. I forgot to look. Was he on the 20 or was he?
He was.
Yeah, he was on the 20, but he didn't play.
Right, yeah. And towards the end, I was kind of thinking like, let's throw Irvin out there and see what happens. But if this is the squad we're going forward with, so you get those 4 short-term call-ups, but you can only put them on the field twice. And so it's probably worth saving the 2 times we can put him on the field for times when we might actually need him to be there. So in hindsight, I'm glad they didn't throw him on.
They didn't do that just for fan service for Landon Cottom. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Darn them. So lineup-wise, we get, this is not really surprising. Stuver, Biederu, Heinzike, Cascante, Gallagher, Bukari, Sabovic, Pereira, Wolf, Uzeni, and Vasquez. The starting lineup. And then we were just talking about this before this comes on, and this really came back to me in the rewatch. Like the first 15, I guess the first 13 minutes, because his first goal's at 13, like Austin looked pretty good. I was going to say Austin didn't look bad, but Austin looks pretty good from the start. Has a couple chances. So let's maybe talk about those before we get into the drudgery of the rest of this match.
Yeah, they had more chances and shots than Vancouver did for those first double-digit minutes. Uzuni gets one in the 4th minute. Austin is playing a ball long. Tristan Blackman gets to it, and he's trying to just head it back to his keeper so the keeper can gather it. But he's pretty far from goal and doesn't get enough on it. And so Uzuni is in alone on Takaoka, their goalkeeper. He tries to bring down the first ball down with his toe, doesn't quite get to it. And so it takes another big bounce and gets closer to Takaoka and allows Takaoka to get closer to him. And so he does get a touch on the second bounce trying to chip the keeper, but he's right in his face at that point and just it bounces off of his chest and they're back the other way. If he can get a slight toe to that first bounce, he has a really good opportunity for a shot with the goalkeeper really far from home right there, but he doesn't quite get to it. Biru gets a shot in the 9th minute. There's a transition moment. Bukhari finds him at the top of the box. This one ends up not being on target. And then we're skipping out of time here a little bit, but Savovic has a chance in the 33rd minute off of an Owen Wolf back heel in the box. Savovic arrives at the edge of the box, winds up for a pile driver, and hits it well over the crossbar. Like, I understand this guy's talent. I know he's scored goals like that. Like, I've seen the clips of him scoring from that exact spot with just smashing the ball. But in the state that we are in right now, with the shots that you've hit in recent games, just get it on target. Like, maybe in another timeline, go for that one. But right now, let's get some shots on target. How many times have our best strikers of the ball done this exact thing this season where, like, I know you're capable of it, but like, baby steps. Let's get one on target, and then you can hit the pile driver next time.
Right. Yeah, let's go back to the basics here.
So the Brian White goal comes in the 13th minute. I think this is like their second shot of the game. And so, as I said, Austin had more chances up until this point. So they're playing with a front line of Emmanuel Sabi, Brian White, and then Daniel Rios, who is normally a striker, playing as their kind of nominal right wing. But as they would progress the ball up the field, those three would be super narrow, like all within the 18-yard box. And then their right back would push forward really aggressively. And so they're asking the question of our fullback, in this case, Biru, do you release to that fullback as he receives wide and risk leaving your center backs overloaded? Or do you stay home and leave your winger to track the fullback? And whatever was supposed to happen, Biru stayed narrow for this goal. He stayed narrow. Bukhari didn't push wide to the fullback until it was a little bit too late. And so I'm not sure what was supposed to happen there. But in any case, the fullback, who is Ocampo, I believe is his name, he gets an early cross in. It's slightly behind Brendan Heinzike and Rios. Rios does a really good job of just throwing a foot back behind him and gets a toe on it. And it pops up in the air, falls straight to Brian White, who finishes it with his first touch and just a few yards from Brad Stuver. And you can't realistically expect a keeper to save that one. And so this is again, a moment of everything going their way, as Esteves would have said. Like, this is a bit of that luck where, okay, Rios didn't mean to play that ball to Brian White right there. But because they had those guys there, they knew that if they could get early crosses in while we're kind of scrambling, that even if there is a bit of chaos there, they have guys in the right spots. They have numbers in the right spots to take advantage of a mistake or a lucky bounce. And that's what they did in this spot. So again, creating their own luck.
Yeah, and what Brian White does all night that you just talked about with Savovic, and we've talked about over and over again, well, and only a Zuni shot too, is like when he has his chance, he takes advantage of it and he makes something out of it. And he puts that ball on frame and not launching it into the 10th row, which it seems like Austin will do often. And that'll come up on the next goal too, which is Brian White again at 38, which starts with a Brad Stuver goal kick kind of right into the attack. But there's multiple, contributors. I was going to say like responsible parties, but yes. Anyhow, on the opposite side, there's a lot of things that go wrong to allow this one to happen too.
Yeah, the bad goal kick goes straight to Priso in the midfield. He plays forward to Sabi, who slips it in behind the back line to White, who's 1v1 with Stuver and finishes it. So talking about being more critical of Cascante on the rewatch, this is a moment where, like, okay, ideally, a person in that position, if we were in our defensive shape and organized, there would be a midfielder there marking that guy, and then the center backs could be minding the striker. But on the rewatch, I mean, you can't give a guy in that area that much time and space. Like, you kind of have to throw your organization and rules out the window. Like, if you're the closest guy to someone on the ball in that area, you have to go. And any player in the league can play a ball in behind the line if you give them that much time and space. And then add on top of that, it's one of the best strikers in the league as far as, I mean, anything but off-ball movement goes in Brian White. And he's absolutely going to find a pocket behind there. You add on top of that, like, so there's lots of disorganization due to the unexpected nature of how we get the ball there. But Danny Pereira is kind of following Brian White. He doesn't follow the run because I think he thinks the run is going to take him offside. But Brendan Hines-Ike is following Brian White because I think he thinks Cascante is going to step to Sabi there. And so he says, okay, this center back's gone. Offside line is gone to crap. So I just need to go mark the striker. Neither of those things happen. And so Brendan Hines-Ike is 3 yards deeper than Cascante, which gives White a gigantic pocket to run into and a gigantic pocket for Sabi to slip the ball into. So it's like a snake eating its own tail of defensive mistakes of, like, I did this because I thought this guy was doing this, but this guy didn't do this. And, like, it's just that 3 times in a circle over and over and over. And I mean, it starts with the bad Stuver kick, but then you have to be able to react in a situation there. And again, asking these guys to be heroes, like, Cascante is not going to be the hero in that moment. But he needs to at least try and, like, be aggressive, come out and not be afraid of his own speed to the extent that he just stands there and does nothing.
Yeah. Before we get into, like, sort of our vibes at the half, I would have to say, first time, 2 times you talked about Sabi, I thought you had given Basard Savovic a cute new nickname.
Oh,
I was a little bit into it. I'm like, okay, he's Sabi now. I mean, I get this. Yeah.
Emmanuel Sabi, the left winger for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Vancouver, yeah. It's like, I don't know why he keeps scoring goals for the other team, but it's cool. I mean, I think on the initial watch at halftime, I was, like, really down. When I went back and watched it again the second time, I'm like, this doesn't seem that bad because the one goal is kind of fluky on the assist, and the other goal is a collective failure. And Austin had chances, and I don't know that I ever felt like the 2-goal lead was the most dangerous lead in soccer, and that Austin was going to come back and win this match. But it felt like at halftime, maybe this wasn't lost, and a 2-1, 3-2 loss in Vancouver on the road, given their form, is not the worst thing in the world. And then it gets really, really bad in the second half.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, on the rewatch, it did not feel like it was going to be 5-1 at halftime. Like, it was a steep mountain to climb, and I did not have that much faith that they were going to do it. But I didn't expect it to turn into what it did. So they get the third goal in the 47th minute. Again, a little bit of luck, but they're taking advantage of it and creating their own luck. There's a corner kick. Veselinovic makes a run across the box. One thing that bothered me on corner kicks here, Veselinovic, I think, is probably the tallest outfield player on the field. We had, like, a zonal line of 4 across the box, which, I mean, there's very intelligent people that will argue for and against zonal marking. I'm not here to do that. But we frequently had one of our shortest players marking one of their tallest players in these moments. So Danny Pereira is marking Veselinovic here. He makes the run across the box. Veselinovic ends up not winning it. The ball just bounces off the back of Danny's head and falls to Emmanuel Sabi right in front of goal. And that line of zonal marking, as they see the contact, they step to raise the offside line, but the bounce is awkward and falls to the perfect spot for Sabi just to slip right in between them and finish it with no chance for Stuver to do anything there. And so, again, a little bit of luck, but also taking advantage of when you're presented with opportunities.
Well, then it would continue to get worse. So this fourth one, the Brian White goal, that's the one that goes off a post and comes, like, straight back to White, correct? So it goes off the post. Stuver's way off his line. I mean, we're at neutral, knowing that he's okay. Seeing Brendan Heisek take that one to the brain would have been kind of hilarious. But my wife was laughing about it. I was not. I was afraid he was going to get a concussion when Austin was already down 4-0, make things even worse for the next match. But man, just that was another weird turn of events.
This is one where talking about the margins being won or lost on just a little bit of effort or intensity or focus or a combination of those things. Whenever that initial ball comes in, so they play a corner, it gets headed away. Vancouver recovers it and recycles it before Austin can get back into shape. So our fullbacks are switched, and Beer's more or less playing right back, and Gallagher's on the opposite side. And so they do a big switch out to Sabi. He beats Beer to the end line and then puts in a cross. The ball is falling to Vasquez and Brendan Hines-Ike. It's coming down. One of them is going to win it. But Brian White is on their back. He comes through and puts Vasquez off enough that I'm not sure if White even touches it or if he just kind of knocks Vasquez off his game. But instead of Vasquez heading the ball out of the box like he should have done, it ends up just falling straight down into the box again. So Rios gets to that ball. He scuffs it so bad that it catches everyone off guard and is just kind of rolling through the box. Stuver comes off of his line. Veselinovic comes back through and pokes it past him, goes off the post and falls to White in the middle of the goal, and he finishes it. You mentioned Brendan Hines-Ike sacrificed his face in vain for that one, but if you look back, like maybe there's nothing you could have done, but everyone else in the box is just standing there, just waiting to see what happens, when maybe what you should be doing is finding where Brian White is and making sure he doesn't get wherever he's going before you do. And nobody did that.
No, that is a really good point. He was so wide open. And it was almost like he and Hindsight were the only two people in the box at that point in time.
Because Conte was there as well, but everyone was just frozen watching what was going to happen next, which...
I guess I should say they were the only two people moving.
Yeah.
Were White and Hindsight.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's probably what I would have done just because of all the crazy stuff that just happened. But, like, again, it's in those margins. So Austin makes a quadruple change in the 66th minute. Go to a back three of Swatok, Heinzike, and Biru with Gallagher and Kolmanich as wingbacks. And then Dubrsarski comes in, and him and Danny are in the midfield. Obrian, Vasquez, and Uzuni up top. I see what they're trying to do. I don't think it changed much. Didn't really help much.
No, it doesn't.
And then Dubrsarski ends up giving away a penalty around the 70th minute. So he ends up pulling Brian White's shirt as he goes up to jump for a ball. Was this a corner again, or just
I thought it was a corner,
like a deeper free kick? Either, I think it was a set piece, but there is a shirt pull. It's the kind of thing that like gets missed or not called in the box all the time, but because the ball was in the vicinity of Brian White and the shirt pull is happening as White is going up to jump, like if the ref sees it, I think it's totally fair to call that. And unfortunate for Dubrsarski. Again, like one of these, we talked about some learning moments he probably got from last week. I think this will be another one. Is just be more clever, more sneaky when you're going to cheat, because everyone does it. You just got to not get caught. But yeah, they give the penalty. And to someone who didn't watch this game, I think the following statement would probably sound crazy, but despite giving up 5 goals, Brad Stuver had a pretty good night. And I think if you take the bad free kick that led to the goal, if you take that out, I'd say he had a really good to maybe bordering on great night with some of the other times where he did come up big. But I think it probably could have been 7 goals with a lesser keeper on the field.
Yeah, I mean, there's the shots. I agree with you on that, and I think this PK save highlighted it. But yeah, because I mean, Vancouver had a lot of shots and a lot of shots inside the box. Just looking at their little shot chart, I mean, everything is like in tight and dangerous during both halves. I mean, they take 27 shots on the night. 16 of their 27 shots on the night are from inside the box. There's a lot of fluky stuff going on. He's not getting a lot of support from his defense. Yeah, it could have been 7 goals. I don't know how much consolation we take from it only being 5, But just this was not a game that Brad Stuver lost alone. I guess this is probably the biggest point.
Yeah. So on the pin, Stuver guesses right and dives to his right. Rios hits the ball a little bit more centrally, but Stuver's able to kick his left foot out and hit the ball squarely and get the ball pretty clean. Another shot comes in pretty hot from the rebound. Stuver wins that one. That one rebounds to Brian White, but he punches it hard enough that the deflection comes off of Brian White's thigh and goes over the bar there. So not just the penalty save, but to recover and win that second one as well was huge from Stuver. And again, like I don't think it matters, but it's something good that happened in a game where almost nothing else did.
Where almost nothing good happened. Yeah. We'll just take that. And I'm glad he showed some emotion out of that.
Hey, this is Landon cutting in from my post-recording walk with my dog Tito to point out that maybe in the greatest example of our boring but accurate brand, we forgot to talk about Brad Stuver picking up a mouse in the middle of this game. So I felt like I had to bring it up here and say that was also one of the only good parts of this game. Brad Stuver, friend to man and beast. What a guy. And this moment will probably go down into the book of legendary MLS moments. So I had to put this in the show somewhere. So there you go.
We weren't done with Brian White on the night, so maybe you want to talk about the fifth goal now too?
Yeah, so Danny Pereira has the ball in the midfield. It's JC Ngando who takes it off of him. Danny Pereira wanted a foul. There was a lot of contact against Danny there. I think Ngando did touch the ball, but I think like a lot of people, and I think a lot of refs think about it this way, like if you touch the ball, then you can do no wrong. And there's no rules that can go against you at that point, which is not what the rules say. There is some subjectivity there. Like just because you touch a ball doesn't mean it's not a foul. I think this one is on the line of where the spirit of that rule is. I think you could have very easily still called a foul there, even though Ngondo got the slightest touch with his toe on the ball. In any case, Danny puts himself in that position with a heavy touch in traffic when he really didn't need to. He kind of pushes past a few guys and just doesn't get to the next ball before Ngondo gets there. Vancouver are in 3v2. Ali Ahmed slips the ball. It's like Svatak starts charging Ali Ahmed. He does really well to slip the ball right behind him to Brian White. Brian White is in on goal with Stuver, and he has a really nice finesse finish that's just past Stuver. So, I mean, really composed, really clever finish from Brian White there. But again, creating their own luck.
Yeah, and I was just looking Danny's game up. Because he is going to get the Austin goal to make it 5-1 and maybe make it not the worst loss of the year. On FOTMob, the player fact for Danny, even after that goal, is Daniel Pereira made an error that led to a goal for Vancouver Whitecaps. One that's so non-specific. I don't know which error they're talking about. But I like that they think it's only one, and it's also kind of crazy that they don't mention the goal is the one player fact about Danny Pereira on the night because it was a pretty goal.
That was an amazing goal.
Nominated for goal of the week, which I guess, I don't know, I haven't followed this before, but apparently there's no context required for MLS goal of the week. It's just the quality of the goal itself.
Yeah, Gallagher this is in the 90th minute, so absolutely does not matter. But John Gallagher puts in a cross from distance. Vancouver heads out the initial ball, falls to Pereira just outside the 18-yard box. He settles it with his first touch, hits it with his second touch. There is no spin on this ball. Like you can see the design on the ball static throughout its whole flight. And it's knuckling so much that Takaoka dives, but then pulls his arms back, thinking that it's going wide. And then as he does that, it knuckles and kind of dips back inside the post. And I like watching the replay several times. I'm still not sure that Takaoka couldn't have just, if he'd have extended his arms, that maybe he would have saved it. But the way that the ball was moving in the air, he lets it go and it ends up tucking right inside that far post. But it's a beautiful strike, a beautiful goal. I'm sure Danny probably liked watching it today or will enjoy watching it even more at some point further in the future, but not much consolation to it in this moment. I think you could see that from his lack of celebration and reaction to scoring that one.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. Wait, what was the goal celebration earlier? Was who did the flip?
Oh, that was Sabi did the flip.
That was Sabi's goal. Okay, sorry.
Brian White should be embarrassed of his goal celebrations. I think I said last year, a couple of years ago, that he looks like in an 80s movie. He's the jerk boyfriend who's dating the girl who's actually supposed to be with the main character, who drives
about this,
a T-top Camaro, and just like the villain of the movie. That's who he looks like to me. And these terrible celebrations didn't do much to make me like him more.
And the fact that, unlike all those 80s movies, like, he didn't get his comeuppance and he actually leaves with the girl and the car and all the money, did not help either.
Right.
All right. I mean, I feel like, is there any individual player performances you want to talk about? Like, collectively, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean,
I was going to say one guy that we haven't talked about was Osman Bukhari, which I think sometimes we would mention how, there's this defensive midfielder or a fullback and you don't talk about them because they're doing their job. I know we spent that with Mikael Dessler a lot. Like, man, I don't know. Bukhari just seems to not fit in with what he's doing and what this team is doing. And I feel like part of it's him, but part of it's like the lack of service too, right? Which we talked about before. You can't get the ball to him in a threatening position. There's not a lot he can do.
Yeah, Estevez said in the post-game press conference that if he's not succeeding, it's my fault because I'm not putting him in a position to succeed. I think we could say by putting him on the left wing, you are lowering his chances of succeeding because he definitely looks less comfortable there. I think he is trying to play quicker. He's trying to not hold on the ball so much anymore, which is good, but he's still not doing that much with it. I think you're right though. I feel like this game is not a fair one to really judge him on because everyone was bad. Whenever you play with good players, you play better. And when you can make each other better in that way. Nobody was making anybody better in this game. I thought Sabovic, who I've had very few criticisms of him to date. I thought he was quite poor, was timid in the midfield, not enough intensity or aggression as far as trying to get the ball forward. I'll say the same thing about Danny. John Gallagher at right back. I mean, this is a thing we saw the last 2 years where he's really good in those transition moments when we're going fast with momentum behind him. If you're asking him to build up the ball and find passes that are going to open up a defense, he's not that guy. And when that's what Vancouver is asking you to do, and he's not going to open it up. The guys who we think could open it up are not doing it in those two midfielders. That's why we got into horseshoe of sadness territory. But man, I thought everyone was pretty poor. I think you could exempt Vasquez and Uzuni a little bit because they just weren't given the opportunity to shine. But even then, Uzuni had a couple of bad passes that could have led to, it could have been dangerous moments that his poor pass made it a not very dangerous moment.
Yeah, I think he ends up having the best ex-goal attempt on the night, right? He also, God, I should read this more. Also had the least touches of any outfield player to play 90 minutes in that match, apparently, was Mirto Uzuni.
It's not surprising to me.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on the Vancouver side. Did you imagine Sebastian Berhalter would have turned into the player that he is now from what the little bit we saw out of him early on in Austin, realizing he was young?
I always figured he would become a good player. I didn't know how good, but we'll see if he can continue this stretch of form, but he's been very good this year. And he had stints of that over, I think last year especially. He showed moments of being a good MLS player, but the form he's in now is it makes it, I think I've seen some people look back at Austin had the loan with the option to buy that year that he was here, and they end up selling him to Vancouver or trading him to Vancouver for I think $100K or $200K in GAM. That looks like a good deal the way he's playing now. I'm sure his money's not super high either. So he wasn't that player when he was here. And I don't know that there was a space for him here necessarily with Danny Pereira and Owen Wolf as our young guys that we're trying to bring through. But if we're gonna say hindsight's 2020, it would have been pretty cool to have a guy like that on the team right now.
Yeah, and just for the human emotional drama, if the whole Berhalter Reina thing had come down with like a Berhalter also playing for Wolf while Reina was at the club, like be even more dramatic. What a good time that would have been for all us observers. And I hate the turf. I think I always hate the turf. It seems like the turf at BC Place is extra annoying. Like the ball bounces funny often. I don't know if it really hurt Austin, like because the ball bounces funny for both teams, but.
Yeah, you could maybe say like some of the poor passes or like the lack of sharpness in the passing, maybe that played a part in it, but it didn't keep Austin from playing with zero intensity, right? Like that's not the turf's fault.
No. I just want to say, I just generally hate it, not specifically because of this game.
Fair. All right, anything else on this one?
No, let's go ahead and take another break, and then we'll preview LA and cover some other Austin FC news. We've got more young player Austin associated news than we normally have, so let's get into that too.
All right, hang tight. We'll be right back.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. The Sage Wilson team is made up of Austin experts who are client-focused and have over 30 years of combined real estate experience. Our friends at Sage Wilson Realty are giving away 2 tickets to an upcoming match. You can fill out the form in the show notes for your chance to win.
If you or someone you know are in need of Sage real estate advice in Austin, talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com.
Our premier sponsor is McGuire Woods Consulting, helping clients in the public affairs space from lobbying at the local, statewide, and federal levels to digital and communications campaigns across the country.
McGuire Woods Consulting has offices in 10 MLS cities and is proud to support Moon Tower Soccer and Austin FC's march to the 2025 playoffs. Contact our friends at McGuire Woods Consulting at mwcllc.com for more information. All right, we are back. We are going to preview the upcoming match against the LA Galaxy, but first, let's cover a few pieces of news. Let's start with Austin FC 2. So I went out to this game. They were playing North Texas, which is FC Dallas's MLS Next Pro team. Austin was missing Irvin Torres, who was with the first team, Micah Burton, who's out injured, and then Riley Thomas, who was with the first team. And so they were playing a little bit down, still end up scoring first and then drawing against North Texas and then losing in penalties. The goal was by Peter Grogan, the Irish striker. And I wanted to bring that up specifically because of a funny story that happened. So we pull up to the game and sit in our normal spots at the top of the stands there. And there's an older guy sitting in front of us with an Irish flag in his hand. And so Mike Cragnola was there, and Mike says, "Hey, are you here for Peter?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm his dad." And it's like, "Oh, that's very cool. It's so cool that y'all came." So they had traveled in from Ireland. It was him and what appeared to be Peter's mother and his sister, and then maybe the sister's boyfriend or someone else was with him. And so Peter ends up scoring a goal in the first half. We look down, and the mother and the sister are there. They didn't know that it was Peter that scored. Oh. And so they're like, "What was it, Peter?" Because it was like, I think it was a corner kick and it got deflected backside and he headed it in at the back post. And so it was like kind of chaotic and on the far end of the field. So understandable. But they were like, "Was it Peter? Was it Peter?" It's like, "Yeah, it was. He scored. He scored." And then I noticed that the dad's not there. And they're like, where is he? Where is he? And then a few seconds later, he comes walking up the stairs. And I'm going to give a content warning here. I'm going to say a curse word, but I have to leave it in for context's sake, so I'm not going to bleep this one. Fast forward if you want to miss it. But content warning for charming Irish swearing. But the dad walks up in the stands and they tell him, "Peter scored and you missed it." And he's like, his hands on his head and he can't believe it. And he turns around and looks at the people sitting behind him and says, "I shat and I missed it." But he was a good sport about it and was laughing and making jokes about it. But I mean, it's very sad that he missed it, but it's also a very funny story, and he made it even funnier.
Yeah, it's great for the content. He did it for the content, man. Okay, so you were there on Friday. We keep hearing about. So if you haven't been out to Palmer Field, there's no on-site concession. What you have to do is go to the pitch, which is the concept next door. Containers, there's a bar, but like it seems like there's less and less of that offense. Like, what was open on Friday?
Yeah, so we've been to 3 or 4 games this season. Every time we've gone, it's only been the burger stand and then one bar serving drinks, and their drink options are very limited and have become more and more limited with each game. Word is that the pitch is shutting down as it exists now, and that it will eventually be replaced by I can't remember the name, but it's
I looked it up. Pop Stroke, which is apparently some kind of miniature golf concept that Tiger Woods is an investor in. And the original Statesman article that I read from last fall said it would be open in spring of 2025, which is now. That's not going to happen. But sources say we're looking at fall 2025, like September-ish, for the Pop Stroke to be open. And I did think there will be some kind of. I'm interested to see if they use like some of the existing pitch infrastructure. Like, will they keep the bar, or will or some of that stuff? Because I did hear that there'd be like outside bar and food and beverage and stuff for people to have as an option at the game. But yeah, I think the pitch was kind of built on the idea that pre-pandemic, all those tech office workers would come over there for lunch, and then they would also have the game traffic, and it just never came to be once nobody was going to those offices.
Yeah, I think the putt thing will do better as a business as far as like drawing people out there more regularly. As far as like the game day experience goes, I mean, we just took, because the first game we went to, the burger stand opened at kickoff. And so I'm like, what? Why are you even here? Like, what? And so we ended up going and waiting in line for a burger at halftime that game and missing part of the second half. And so this last time, we just got P. Terry's on the way in and took it into the stadium with us, and they didn't stop us. And so they don't care. They're not selling it. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, in this interim, fans don't start figuring out, like, oh, we can just take our own stuff in there and then just
bring your own. Yeah.
keep doing that when Pop Stroke is open, because it's not the same business. I don't think the people running the game care where you buy your stuff, as long as you're not bringing in glass. They don't, or glass or like weird metal stuff. They don't care what you do.
Which I've seen the first booster who tries to bring a keg in. Let us know how that works. You want to talk about
bring your own pitcher.
Yeah, talk about the GA Cup, because Austin's got 2 teams playing in this tournament, and one's doing really well and one is not. I think we previewed this a few weeks ago when the schedule came out.
Yeah, I mean, MLS websites are infuriating to try to navigate, especially with stuff like this, but there's very little information when we talked about it before. We finally got like the broadcast schedule a few days before it started. Austin was not on any of those teams. So the U18s finished bottom of their group, I think with one draw, and then they won the penalty shootout. And so they ended with 2 points at the bottom of their group. They'll continue playing some sort of consolation bracket or something like that, but those will likely not be broadcast. The U16s finished top of their group, and so they'll go into like the main playoff bracket. There's a good chance those will be broadcast. That's still not information that's available right now. They have not populated that anywhere on their website, so we'll see in the coming days. But I think that that round starts on the 16th, and so if you're interested in watching the U16s play in the playoff rounds of the GA Cup, check out. I think you can. I just been Googling GA Cup, and then there's a website dedicated to it. And then there will eventually be links that go somewhere that show the game, but they're not there now.
Yeah, I think the games, the ones that are streamed, are being streamed on MLS's YouTube page. Because I saw this from we call her our friend Katie Goodman, Austin FC sometimes reporter, is on the broadcast for some of these matches. So I saw from her, like, you could check it out at the MLS YouTube page, and I assume that's where where you'll be able to see the playoff matches that show up.
Also this week is US Open Cup is back. So their third round games on both Tuesday and Wednesday. After this round is the round where Austin FC and 15 other MLS clubs will be entering. So I looked back and saw like what the timeline of the draw was. They tended to do it 1 or 2 days after the last game. And so by the end of this week, we'll have the draw and we'll find out who Austin FC is going to be playing. I tried to do a little bit of digging and figure out who might be the most likely candidates, because the way that they do it is they'll take all the winners of this round, divide them into groups, trying to base it on geography. But the entering teams, like the newly entering teams being these 16 MLS teams, have been predetermined to either host or play away. And then the new entering teams don't play each other. So none of these entering MLS teams will play each other. It'll all be the winners of the third round versus the MLS teams. And so based on the teams still in this tournament, some of the matchups will pick themselves based on the previous factors. But then they'll essentially try to draw names from these logical regions and draw regions around the remaining teams. So teams that are in our logical region for the time being that are still in this tournament are San Antonio, FC Tulsa, New Mexico United, and El Paso. And then if, say, like all of those teams or most of those teams get eliminated and you kind of expand that circle, you're looking at like Union, Omaha, Colorado Springs, Phoenix Rising, maybe Louisville City is stretching it a little bit. Out of those first four, let's say San Antonio, Tulsa, New Mexico, and El Paso, which of those, if we were going to get those at home, which would you rather play?
I mean, three of those are interesting to me. One, San Antonio, because we have the one away U.S. Open Cup match in San Antonio. It was a disaster that Austin lost in the first year, so it feels like a chance for revenge is good there. New Mexico United brings back maybe Roddy Redis scoring a goal, so that's always that's always something that brings joy to my heart. And then I think the El Paso team seems interesting, and I think I own a scarf from them that I bought at one point when I went to El Paso to visit. So those are all good to me. Tulsa, I don't really care about.
Yeah, I don't know much about any of these teams. Once the draw happens, I'll do some research and we'll have more of that on next week's show. But I'm not going to go scouting 16 teams until we have that one
just
team,
in case.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, also like in this previous round, there was 4 teams, I think, that it didn't make sense to put them in any of the geographical groups. And so they just got put in a random draw. So like Chattanooga played Phoenix Rising, I think, or maybe Las Vegas. And they had to travel really far for this like supposedly regional round. So we could end up playing just a random team like that too, from who knows where. But the point is, we'll know by the end of this week, more than likely, who that opponent's going to be. And we'll be able to talk more about that next week.
All right, the other news we got on Friday was that CONCACAF's having the Gold Cup matches after the draw, and Austin's Q2 Stadium will play host to Saudi Arabia versus the United States on June 19th, Guatemala versus Panama on June 20th, and Panama versus Jamaica on June 24th. Pre-sale is started today, Monday, and tickets will go on sale to the general public for Thursday, April the 17th. I don't know, man. What do you think? Like, there was a time in 2021 when Austin played Jamaica, and I got in the pre-sale, and I went and really enjoyed it. And it feels like I appreciate that the U.S. national team keeps coming back to Austin, but I feel like, given the fact that I think supporters' tickets are almost $100 all in, like, some of the luster is gone off that too. And I don't really care to see this U.S. national team play Saudi Arabia either, honestly, is part of it.
Yeah, the price really gets me there. And like, I think some people are surprised to see tickets in the supporter section being so expensive, but for these international games, they'll put those seats down. And I think they will actually be assigned seats in that area, if I'm not mistaken. But so they're not thinking of it as the supporter section. They're thinking of it as good
101
seats
to
on the
105
south end that are really
Yeah.
close to the pitch. But it is really expensive to go to these national team games, like more than even resale of Austin FC games sometimes. Like their initial sale is more expensive than that. So, I mean, I'll see. Maybe I'll buy secondhand or try to figure out a way to get in. But I'm definitely not buying on these pre-sales as soon as they come out at the listed price.
Yeah, and plus, it's just like as a fan in Austin, maybe I was a fan from outside of Austin who like had a love of the national team and wanted to be able to see them play. And this is a way to do that, because I've got a couple of buddies from San Antonio that will probably drive up for it. But like, as a fan in Austin with the U.S. Open Cup matches we just talked about, you know, with the regular season, with just there's just like so many games that you are already paying for, you know, or they're like included in your package, that spending another pile of money on a Gold Cup match that doesn't really matter all that much seems not that appealing.
Yeah. And if the prices were lower, I definitely would go. I would for 40, $50, I'd probably be there every time. But for 80, 90, 100, $120, maybe not.
Very true. All right, let's talk about LA Galaxy MLS Cup winners last year. I think everybody had very high hopes for them going into this year. I think there's the reality that hit sort of during the offseason that because of these salary cap issues, because they had these players on like really good deals, they lost a lot of talent. But I don't think that anybody expected the fall that LA has had, given both like sort of this the talent drain and then also, Ricky Puig going out and LA not like having him available. I think it has to be surprising that they're the worst team in the Western Conference at this point.
Yeah, still have not won a game. They have drawn 3 games and lost 5. So they're bottom of the West with 3 points at the moment. And yeah, like you said, like Ricky Puig is a big miss, but like I didn't think they would fall this far.
Yeah, what is it? Biggest negative goal differential in the West. Only DC and SKC have given up more goals. Last week they played at home against Houston, drew 1-1 on Diego Fagundes' goal, which I think it was in his 400th Major League Soccer appearance, which got him, I think, on the bench of MLS Team of the Week. And they did that. I think they were playing a man down, so they were playing 10 on 11 at that point. So
yeah, the red card came early as well. I
Yeah.
think 28th minute. So they played most of that game down, and that free kick saved the point for them in a game where I think they had 5 total shots and only forced only 1 save. So I think the Fagundes goal and 1 others were on target, and then 3 shots off target, and that was all they created in that game.
And this is against Houston too, right? Which is also not a great team. So this is not like they were playing against Vancouver or Philadelphia or Columbus or anything there. And then because of this red, so Zanka, one of their center backs, picked up a red out for this match. And then I think one of their other starting center backs has been out for a little while, right?
Yeah, Maya Yoshida, who I think has been the captain a lot of times this year, and currently Diego Fagundes is wearing the captain's armband with him out. I'm not going to say anything about that. You can make the joke yourself. But Maya Yoshida is a big miss in the middle of their defense there. And now with one of their starters out, they'll likely be starting, is it Garces? Is that? Yeah, Garces, who's been one of the mainstays there. And then with Zanka out and with Maya Yoshida out, I think they're probably going to have to start Eric Zabaleta, who has played 45 minutes in MLS this season so far. Zanka also kind of made a big blunder last week in their loss, so maybe it would have been better if he did play. But right now, it looks like they're probably only going to have 2 first-team center backs available for this game. Maybe they'll bring someone up, but for guys who are week in and week out on that first-team roster, it's going to be only 2 of them.
Yeah, their other defender on the bench last week was Harbor Miller, 17-year-old right back. So it's pretty thin. And I guess I was just reading through some tactical stuff on them, and a lot of it was for 2024. They talked about how Greg Vanney likes to play, and talked about it being like a possession team, being possession plus attacking intent, so not just possession for the sake of possession. But there's no quality in the attack, basically, at this point in time. I think probably a lot because of the people they've had out. And like Painsel's only been in for a couple matches, too. So he's missed almost every match. Puig has missed a bunch. And there's some other guys who've had out, too.
Yeah, so Painsel just started playing again. I think he started this last match, so he's been ready. But of their like super high-powered guys, it's only been Gabriel Peck. And he hasn't been up to his standards this season yet. Ricky Puig is out, but they're also, because of their tight salary cap situation, they had to get rid of a lot of guys. Mark Delgado, who was really instrumental for them, he plays for LAFC now because they couldn't afford to keep him. Gaston Bruggeman, who didn't play as big of a role last year, but did come up big and ended up, I think, scoring the winning goal for them in the final. He's gone. They signed, I think they traded for Sean Davis in the offseason and then realized they weren't going to have cap space for him and put him on waivers. And so they kind of, by being successful and riding the line of the salary budget, by winning MLS Cup, it pushed them over the edge, and they had to kind of have a fire sale and get rid of a bunch of people. On top of that, Pooj is out. On top of that, Paint still hasn't been available. On top of that, Peck hasn't been that good this year. Marco Royce also wasn't super impactful in his short stint last year, but hasn't really been available. I think he's injured. He might be a back for this one, but wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't fit enough to start. And so looking at the Austin side of this, if there was ever a matchup to get your offense going, to bounce back and have a statement win, this is it. Like, this is the opportunity. If we are to take Brendan Heinzike and Nico Estevez at their word for the things that they said they were saying in the locker room, this is your chance to prove it. Don't talk about it, be about it. Like, this is your moment.
Yeah, it's one of those things where everything lines up for this to be Austin's chance to rally and make a difference. I really hope that to be true, but it also feels like the kind of match that we've spent a lot of time talking about how this is the one, right? This is everything set up right for Austin to win and make a difference. This was at home.
Even more devastating if they don't do it.
Yeah, right. Which again puts us back in this 2023, 2024 mode if it doesn't happen. This one's at home on Saturday afternoon at 12:45, probably 12:55, I guess, or something, given actual kickoff. But there's all the opportunity in the world for Austin to be able to put this Vancouver match, one of the ugliest losses in the history of the team, especially given who was available, put this behind them and start turning things around against LA. And I mean, if it does happen, then maybe this is just a blip, and Austin's back. I think Austin's 6th in the West right now. Maybe Austin's back and forth, and goal differential looks okay. And, they're in better shape, because I believe the next match is against the Houston Dynamo, which is another match where Austin has a chance to make some points. So one would hope that what Austin takes out of this Vancouver experience is this opportunity to bond and gel and solidify as a club, or it's going to make for a long 2025.
Yeah, looking at the Austin side of the game, there's not a lot of changes they really can make given the personnel that's healthy right now. And so I think one you could see is Svatak back in for Cascante. I criticize Cascante, but I'll also say, like, he was put in tough situations because of how bad the rest of the team was defensively. That's all good and well, but it's still not a question you want raised about your performance when there's another guy who has done quite well in his starts and his longer performances while you were out injured. So this is what depth and competition looks like. If you have a bad game, next man up, you get to try. And I think that's one of the positions where you could see that. I don't know that there's any other position where we have the luxury of really doing that. Do you?
No, I do think that you kind of have the point. Like, absent Ilie, I feel like Svatak is your better choice for Austin just generally, and I think that Cascante's last match really leads to that. But other than that, I mean, the midfield's set because you've got what you've got, assuming that he's not going to be able to be back. You're not going to be able to play Rubio, probably. I guess we'll find out more this week, like up top in any kind of combination. And also, I don't know who you take him off to include. I mean, I don't feel like
maybe you see what team was it they ran out Danny and Owen as the wingers? Maybe we see that look again, because that ended up, we looked all right that week, and we're against a team who wants to keep the ball, wants to play with the ball. Let's play defensively, hit them on the counterattack, go back to our strengths. But if they do, like the game asks us or opens up the opportunity for us to play with the ball, they got to change something or figure something out. Like, looking at this formation, this 4-4-2 look, it felt like Pereira and Savovic were kind of overrun there in the middle. And Owen was dropping back into kind of into those half spaces to try to become part of the midfield. But it rarely paid off. They were rarely able to find him or get into those spaces. I hate agreeing with Matt Doyle, but what he said in one of his columns this week was, this team is not fitting the way that I was afraid they were not going to fit. And what he suggested is playing a 4-3-3 with Owen Wolf as the pressing 10 and Uzuni as kind of like a pinched in left winger. And then you would be able to push Biru up there, or stretch Owen wide and have Biru underlap or something like that in that shape. I don't know what the defensive shape looks like with that setup. There's ways to figure it out. It's not that hard of a puzzle. I just don't know exactly what it would look like. But I think that idea could help us if it's a game where we think we're going to have more of the ball. If we don't think we're going to have the ball, lean into it. Let's be a counterattacking team and just do that.
Yeah, and I don't know. Austin has as much ability normally as they would without a full roster, right? Like the guys are out are one thing, but then like like Dessler being out and limiting the places you can play John Gallagher significantly limits what Austin could do as a club overall, right? Like in terms of flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's an example of how we are deeper than we've ever been as far as quality goes, but still not a roster that I would call a contender for this very example of like, okay, we've got two guys who are normally starters out, and it all kind of falls to
it all falls apart. Yeah. Hopefully LA continues to be bad and doesn't figure it out like they haven't figured out yet this year. And this is Austin's bounce back performance. And let's just leave it at that. And let's look for better times in the future.
All right. Before we finish, we'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join the Patreon. We're very excited. I think you can probably tell the way we're talking about these gifts this year. I think they're super cool. I think people are really going to like them. So yeah, check that out. Join Patreon at patreon.com/moontowersoccer. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week to review Austin's match against the Galaxy and then preview the first Copa Tejas road trip going to Houston, and then cover any other Austin FC news, including Open Cup draw. Until then, I'm Lennon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothing, you never.
La gente
Oh my God.
Zulu Chup Boom Boom sauce.
Yeah.